What up, though? This is the Roar of the Lions UK podcast sponsored by Justin Tucker. You have ruined my week.com. This is, of course, the podcast where six guys from around the British Isles get together to talk about anything and everything Detroit Lions. My name is Anthony Fitzpatrick, and I'm joined as ever by Ryan McCluskey this evening, which of course means we're in for another week of college football. These seem to come around so quickly, but once again, we've had a great weekend of action and we've had a lot of upsets, not as big as the upset that Justin Tucker caused us. And I'm sorry, but I may mention that a few times because I'm still pissed about it. But Ryan, how are you feeling after this weekend of college football? I mean, there's been some big upsets in there, a lot of results we didn't see coming, a lot for the neutral to enjoy.
Yeah, these were probably the biggest upsets maybe of the season this week, especially if you look at the points margin. Some of the spreads were wild. One team, like I say, we'll go on to later, was a 30-point favourite before play, and let's say those 30 points did not didn't turn up. Like I say, it was embarrassing. College-wise, it's going better than my soccer team. It's going better than my NFL team. So right now, it's the only thing that's keeping me from losing sleep. Like I say, everything else is going wrong. But no, it's been another fantastic week. Like I say, for games, like I say, as a neutral, the rankings taking another shape up again. And like I say, I think it's slowly, the disappointments are also really starting to show their true colours now. There's teams that everyone thought they were going to be contenders, and right now they just look like big fat phonies. Like I think Peter Griffin once said. It's interesting. Like I say, I think it's great. This is probably one of the most competitive seasons I can remember the last few years because some of the big names just aren't showing up, and there's no excuses either.
Absolutely. This was not the weekend to be a Vegas gambler. Let's just say that much, because so many teams just absolutely, as you say, destroyed the money lines, the spreads, everything just went to hell this weekend. Yeah, I agree with you. It's been one of the most unpredictable things going. A lot of pretenders are becoming contenders and vice versa. A lot of the teams we thought would be contending are fading into obscurity. So yeah, we've got a lot to get through today. So we're going to go through some bits of news first, including another head coach casualty. Going to go through a few more of the injuries that have occurred. One team in particular is suffering an absolute nightmare after this weekend, not just for results on the pitch, but also for injuries sustained. We're then going to take a look, take a bigger review of week 4, have a look at some of these games because there are a lot of games that we need to talk about, a lot of big results there. We're going to take a look at week 5 as well, because there are a lot of ding-dong fixtures coming up this weekend that we're looking forward to. So we're going to go through all those as well. And then we've got a couple of audience requests that we're going to be fitting in at the end. So I'm going to say we've got an absolute lot to go through. So we're going to dive straight down into the news. And the first actually involves the Detroit Lions this week. So a tweet came out on Monday, I believe. It was from a guy called Jim Trotter. He's an NFL media reporter. His blue tick seems to be quite a reliable source. And he tweeted out that USC boosters have reached out to Lions offensive coordinator Anthony Lynn to gauge his interest in the university's vacancy. Obviously, USC fired their head coach a couple of weeks ago. In brackets, he's put the answer to this is he would be interested in the job, but to date, there has been no contact between the school and Anthony Lynn himself. And now I know that might seem a little confusing, but I believe boosters are employees of these colleges and schools who have certain remits there, but they don't always act in an official capacity. But looking at the bigger picture in question here, Ryan, I mean, Anthony Lynn settled in very well to Detroit for the first time in ages. This offense feels like it's got a bit of zing about it, a little bit of misdirection, a little bit of the opposition doesn't know what's coming after all the plan A and plan A only stuff we had under Matt Patricia. This would be a huge blow to lose Anthony Lynn if these rumors are true. But I mean, for me, I can't see it happening. Surely not now.
Not now, but I can see it happening. I think purely based off location and money. USC will offer him a contract far more than we're paying him. I can guarantee that. The money they throw about in college is ridiculous. So from that incentive wise, I can see it happening, but not now. I don't think Detroit right now is in the contract. They will refuse permission. They will not let USC speak to him. So these are just, like I say, they may have wanted to reach out, but I think it will get knocked back. It'll be slapped away. Like, I can see at the end of the year, I think, depending on how this season goes, that if he feels he's not a right fit here, that he may jump at the chance if they're willing to wait for him, or if they're able to negotiate something now where they're willing to just say, fine, the job's yours at the end of the year, carry on with Detroit. But for us to suddenly have to learn an all new playbook when we have a quarterback now that fits this like West Coast RPO scheme, like RPAs and stuff like that, it'd be totally destroying the entire year. Everything would have been for nothing this year on that rebuild. We'd have just taken back another huge step backwards, and it would just prolong the retool. So I think it'd be really detrimental, like I say, especially to likes like Hawkinson and Swift, to learn another offense when it'd be their third in such short careers. So I really hope he's here for the long haul, but I don't see him sticking around if the interest is true after this year.
Yeah,
I just hope we're compensated for it.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, it'd be a hell of a blow. I mean, I think, when it comes to you're looking at the other side of the ball, Aaron Glenn, I think we're already resigned to the fact that we've only got him for a short span of time here at the Lions, maybe 2, hopefully 3 seasons if possible. But I think to lose Lynn as well, it just ruins the foundations of what you want. We've got such a good balance of experience and youth in this team at the moment, and I think he represents obviously a big part of the experience side of it. And I don't really, we can't afford to lose. I would hope that this is a new project for him. We've given him a chance after he's been a head coach and been fired. I would like to think he's going to stay here, but I mean, just theoretically, I guess if he did drop down, obviously he'll be dropping down into the Pac-12 with your own Sun Devils. Would you want to see him in that league? Do you think he'd have success, or is it just, like you say, more for the money, not going to rejuvenate their fortunes?
He ain't going to rejuvenate them because there's a lot. Like, we look at the loss. Look at the loss this weekend. First time in like 60 years they lost to an Oregon State team. There's a lot of problems there, like, and they're more than coaching. And especially, like, say, when Drake Jackson, Drake London, like, say, there's players that high profile that are about to leave that I don't think have been replaced because the players that weren't replaced this year, like, they don't have a great recruiting class. Like, you ain't gonna turn, like, say, water into wine there straight away. They're rebuilding. They're not a power like they thought they were. So unless he's got long-term aspirations, he can't just drop down of immediate success. I won't fear them. I don't fear them now.
Now, fair enough. Hopefully it's something we don't have to speculate over in future, but we remain to be seen. So yeah, we'll move on from that one. So the power rankings, the updated ones for this week have come out for the college level. And we only usually do a few of these a week, but I'm just going to drop through the top 10 just to give you a figure of where we're at the minute. So it's at the top. Alabama, Georgia are in second. The Oregon Ducks are third. Penn State, they've moved up a place to fourth. Iowa Hawkeyes, they're in fifth. Cincinnati Bearcats have moved up to sixth. They've gone up 2 places. Notre Dame, seventh. Arkansas, they're the big movers of the week. They're in eighth. They've come up 9 places after a big win, which we're going to talk about a lot in a bit. And then in ninth, you've got Oklahoma, who are dropping down the rankings. And in 10th, you've got Ohio State, who are still dropping. And there are a few other noticeable names you're not seeing in the top 10 who you're used to. The Clemsons, the LSUs aren't there. Ryan, is there anyone you're surprised is in this top 10 now? Because, I mean, we're at the point now where teams are, this is evening out a bit. These are not rankings given out willy-nilly. The teams up here deserve to be. So is there anyone you're a bit surprised who's here or surprised who is not here?
I'm surprised Notre Dame are there. I'm not being funny, but has anyone watched their games? They've looked terrible in most of their wins. They could have lost every game. Like, they're not a good football team. They're scraping by off luck and Kyle Hamilton, like, getting turnovers and taking the ball away from the offense. They're barely a top 15 team in the country and they're unbeaten. Like, they're total frauds. I just can't believe people aren't seeing this. Like, you've got to look at, like, people need to watch their games, not just look at the stats and that. Like, they've played 3 quarterbacks in one game. Like, something tells you it's not right there because Jack Cohen has fallen to bits behind that offensive line so far. And they're going through the depth at a lot of positions. Like, I can't believe they're still unbeaten, but they're due a few hammerings, I think. Like I say, they don't fill me with any confidence whatsoever.
Just in case you're listening, Old Dominion Jack, we will say something nice about Notre Dame. I promised you we would. Those are Ryan's comments there. I will find something good to say about you, so please do stick with us. I think the one for me, Cincinnati up in sixth. Now, I loved Desmond Ridder coming into this season. I thought he was a really good quarterback, but then the dissenting voices appeared and more people sort of chirped against him. And I sort of found myself, sorry, I bowed to maybe a bit of public pressure on him, but I feel kind of a bit ashamed I have now because that Bearcats team have had a really good season. And in fairness, they've got a big matchup coming this weekend against Notre Dame. We'll talk about that later, 6th versus 7th. But that's a chance for Ridder to really show that, he's going to be a big player in this year's quarterback field for the draft. Is there anyone else up there that you're a bit surprised about, or is it sort of as per the course?
Yeah, I'd say that's kind of it for the top 10. Like once you get from like 15 to 25, it's a total free for all. Like there's no way to organize it. Like it's very, very difficult now, like you say, because it's a lot of like one-loss teams. Like you say, Oklahoma, they have not looked convincing whatsoever. Like I say, they were a 17-point favorite, I think, against West Virginia, and they very much struggled to beat them. Like they could not put away that side. Spencer Rattler is shooting his Heisman stock is in the bin, and his draft stock is just it's wavering a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, like they have not impressed me at all. Like there's a lot of teams out there that have got a lot of wins, but they've had to make really hard work to get that this far.
I tell you what, I've seen a few things that's been in our Discord chat as well. His attitude seems terrible as well.
Oh
I mean, the situation there's bad. They're actually chanting for him to be replaced. This is the presumptive number one pick Heisman winner. They already want him out. That's just showing how it's gone. Because obviously everyone thought this high-powered offense was going to come up, and fair enough, they put about 80 points down in the first 2 games. But since then, they've struggled. And I mean, West Virginia, we said it last week. Was there a chance they could knock them off after they took out Virginia Tech the week before? It was only 3 points. They came very close to beating them.
Yeah, like I said, just like their first week. That to be fair to him, their offense is doing the job. The defense in like the scoring, like you say, 30, 40 plus points. This is enough to win every game of the season. And he's like you say, I think his attitude at times is worse than the play. Like I'm pretty sure like his first half wasn't that bad. They weren't setting them alight. They should have been like more considerably in the lead. But like I say, when you're getting chanted at just half time to be replaced and like trying to pressure Lincoln Riley into making a decision, like that says a lot about how they seem like maybe doesn't seem bothered. Like if I was him, I'd be really bothered that things aren't going well or people. He should be playing pissed. He should be pissed off right now. And he just walks around sometimes like this can-do, carefree attitude, and that's not going to fly at the next level. Like he swaggers about like he's God's gift. Like he has an attitude that sometimes reminds me of bloody Tate Martell. This guy's 10 times more like talented. Like I hate these quarterbacks that go like that. Like they just laugh and joke their way through and they ride off this talent. Like you got to show some like emotion sometimes. He's a bit emotionless. Like that irritates me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely a door open for the second tier of quarterbacks now behind Howell and behind Rattler. And there is an opportunity there for someone to take that presumptive number one spot. And there's one of our favorite guys who is already getting mentioned a bit, but we'll mention him later as always. Just to finish off sorry, go on.
One thing. I'll just refer to what Matthew said last year about Christian Darrisaw. He said he didn't like him as a draft prospect because he didn't look like he was enjoying himself. He walked around, and I get that from Rattler. He's privileged, and I don't think he plays like he is.
Yeah, I think when he comes onto an NFL squad full of vets and experienced guys, they're not going to take that kind of attitude from him, I don't think, very quickly. I think you've got to be a lot more, not friendly, but you've got to be a lot more, approachable.
Charismatic, yeah. You need a bit more charisma, don't you?
Yeah, so anyhow, this is opening up a massive hole for someone to come in and usurp the pair of them, really, because Hal's getting left hung out to dry by his offensive line at North Carolina. But we'll talk about that. As I said, just to round off the top 25 chat, both Michigan teams are still there. The Wolverines have moved up 3 spots to 15 after they barely beat Rutgers, and they have a quarterback controversy of their own. And Michigan State snuck a win against Nebraska. They moved up 4 spots to 18th. I mean, I guess we'll quickly mention this one, but in terms of the Wolverines case, we talked about this the other day. Cade McNamara, their quarterback, he is 15th in passing attempts and yards, I believe, in the Big Ten. There's only 14 teams. Somewhere, a team and its backup, I believe Illinois, have thrown for more than him. That has to be a concern for them, given the relatively easy schedule they've had so far and struggling to put Rutgers away the way they did. I think if either of the 2 Michigan teams are going to fold first, it looks like them, surely.
It does. It raises 2 questions for me. Is he trusted? Do they trust him to put the game on the shoulders and throw the ball? Is he accurate enough? But then at the same time, I understand it because you ride the hot hand. If you're winning games by running the ball, that's fine. Keep pounding it down the throat. But as we saw with UCLA and Zach Charbonnet, if one team stops your running back, Blake Corum, and holds him to 20, 30 yards, are they going to lose? If suddenly they have to abandon the run, can he pass and win the game? And right now the question is I don't know, probably no. So yeah, like I say, I think Michigan will deserve to lose before Michigan State will, because they're one-dimensional. They're the most one-dimensional team probably in the whole Power 5 conferences.
Exactly. At least Peyton Thorne's sort of holding his own at quarterback for the Spartans. So yeah, we'll see. But I agree with you. Yeah, I think the Wolverines are going to be the ones who crack first out of the schedule permitting. Moving on, a few bits of news. We've got a couple of naughty boys in trouble this week. So we've mentioned in previous weeks about Ohio State, how everything is not well in the building there. Well, they had a bit of a further controversy this weekend. Kayvon Pope, who is a senior linebacker for them, who's played 33 games as a backup and a special teams player and was expected to challenge as a starter this year. He was trying to get on the field for a play, but he was waved off the pitch by one of the coaches, causing him to storm off to the locker room, took himself out the game and tweeted twice. One of those tweets was "fuck Ohio State," and he was promptly booted out of the program. All is not well there, Ryan. I mean, Ohio State, there was a lot of hopes for them this season, but the fans are turning on them. The players are getting in a tiff with them. This is just another example of just how things are not well there at all, are they?
No, it's one thing to be hauled off. I can get that. But when you go to the internet where we know things can't be deleted, any player that badmouthed the team would get dismissed. Like I say, he's going to have a hard time finding work in the transfer portal now. That is not going to help him trying to get on another roster, because that is just pure disobedience. And like you say, he must have felt that strongly to remove himself from the game, like he thought he didn't have a chance or that he wasn't getting a fair shot at the crack at the whip. Like, I like that they've acted so quickly. That does give me a little bit hope, like off the scenes, that their things are working. But like I say, they're struggling on and off the field, and this is just another almost nail in the coffin. Like I say, is Ryan Day the man to take forward Ohio State? Did the players respect him enough? Because this causes a serious lack of respect. I wonder how else the locker room feels, because usually, like, Kayvon's friends won't take hand. The other players might come a bit ender. It's worrying to see, like, say, this happen, especially with someone that's an experienced guy, like, say, 33 games. Like, he's no child. So let's see if this comes back to have any ramifications, or if anyone else experiences or shows any more dissent.
Exactly. I suppose if you're a player it's on at least a harmonious team, but you're not getting the touches, you just go to the transfer portal. You look like Lynn Dixon at Clemson. He hasn't caused a fuss there. He's not got the game time he wants. He's on there, and they're not exactly doing well, but it does show a level of respect towards the team to do that. So talking of teams that are in a little bit of bother at the minute, that brings us on to Georgia Southern. Been a very tumultuous week for them. On Saturday, they lost 28-20 to the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. And after that, they fired their head coach, Chad Lunsford, who becomes the third casualty of this season. They're 1-3 this year. He leaves with a 28-21 record over his tenure, but that's not been considered good enough for them. You know, the directors there are looking to rekindle the team's glory days. They've got 6 FCS national titles, but they've not won one since 2000. And you see a few other teams of that stature sort of moving forward, developing with the game, getting a lot more success. You know, they've obviously felt it's time to get rid of him. And while this was getting mentioned in exactly the same interview, it came out that one of their players, fifth-year senior defensive lineman Gavin Adcock, has been suspended indefinitely after he himself engaged in a spot of bad behaviour. They were on the team bus on the way to the game on Saturday, and he was on the roof. He caught a beer thrown by a fan, chucked it down in one, which, you know, after a game would be quite fun doing the old stone cold there. But this was before the game on Saturday. Again, another idiotic mistake. A very bad week for Georgia Southern, Rye.
Yeah, like that. If they'd have won the game, I feel like the head coach might have survived. But at some point, 28-21 for some teams, that's fine. But it gets to a point with a franchise where making a bowl game every year, it's just not good enough. 6, 7, 8 wins on the bounce for a few years. It's just not good enough. You've got to be able to take them to the next level. Like I said, it's a historic program. And right now, I know they're nowhere where they want to be. They can barely make the FCS playoffs, so like they're former national champions. And as you say, like people like Sunday League footballers, they'd go out on the Raz, they'd turn up drunk to their games, and like no one would care. But when you're like a model professional, a fifth-year senior that should know better, I watched the video on Instagram. He stood on one of those yellow school buses like The Simpsons. Someone throws him it, he's dancing, and he necks it in one. And I'm pretty sure then the bus kind of like drives as well. So like it's not even stood still. Like it's dangerous, it's foolish, especially before like I'm pretty sure it's a road game. It's like it shows a total lack of respect. And the teammates should never have been egging him on if they were. Like, I'm not surprised they lost because that's just poor. It just looks like they're not taking it seriously whatsoever.
No, I mean, I agree. You just things you don't do like that, especially before a game. It's just another lack of discipline that you don't want to see in your team. So, you know, he's only been indefinitely suspended. Don't know whether it's the end for him there, but you can't imagine that it's good for his future chances at the minute. But we will see. So, you know, we'll move it on. That's everything for the news this week. We're just going to drop down now, have a look in the injury corner, see what's happened, see if there's anything that affects the draft here. And one team, as I mentioned at the start of the show, has had a really rotten weekend, not only in terms of results on the pitch, but also in terms of injuries. And that team is the Clemson Tigers, who, since Trevor Lawrence have left, have really bumped down to earth, and Dabo Sweeney there is having a really bad time of it at the moment. They sustained 3 bad injuries this weekend. Sixth-year linebacker James Skolsky, I mentioned him a couple of weeks ago as a guy who was really standing out in their defense, you know, helping them to sort of, you know, good victories. I mean, last week against Georgia Tech, there was a game-winning drive which he managed to stuff. I mean, that's against Georgia Tech. That would have been a huge upset if they'd have lost that, but thanks to him, they won. But he left the game on Saturday with a shoulder injury. It's not come out how bad it is yet, but that's expected to keep him out indefinitely, which is a huge blow for their defense. And then offensively, they've lost running back Will Shipley for up to a month, and that's really bad for them because with Lynn Dixon going to the transfer portal, a running back room that was already bad has just become a whole lot worse because I don't know really who the depth guys are after this, but they're not high up there. You know, these we're talking the 4th, 5th string guys they're down to at this point, and they're going to be without him for a month. And given their struggles on offense this year, that's going to be really big for them. And to top it off, then they also lost their defensive tackle, Byron Breesy, for the season with a torn ACL. Now this season, he'd already racked up 12 tackles, 3 of which were for a loss. He got 1.5 sacks, a pass breakup, an interception. He was having a really good, effective season, and they've lost his services for good now. I mean, that is a rotten amount of luck for one weekend, especially when your team's not performing well on the pitch.
Yeah, and like, if anyone doesn't know, these 2 were 5-star recruits. These were 2 of the highest recruits in the whole nation last year. Everyone wanted Brian Brzee. and Will Shipley. Everyone thinks Will Shipley could be the next Christian McCaffrey. Well, everyone says that about a white running back. But no, he's great. Like you say, he was taking the pressure off. I watched the whole game. He was getting things done. He kept them late in the game, like pounding a touchdown. And at Breezy, there's this shot of him where he's just like on his own on the bench with a towel on his head. He's got like tears in his eyes, and like it made me feel so bad. Like he knew the injury was bad. He had ice on his thigh, and he knew out there, like if those two stay in the game, maybe they get over the line. I think that just compounded how things were. Like there's no taking away that, like say they lost half the players, lost half the time of possession, everything. They got dominated by a fantastic NC State team, but this is just bad. Now I'm putting Clemson on upset alert now, probably for the next maybe a month or two. Like everyone is going to be able to go in there now and take them down if they want to. If someone wants to show up now, Clemson are there for the taking, and they could lose a damn sight more games. And I also, is this the end of Dabo's winner? Is this the end of the era there? I know they've had injuries, but if they overreact, they could very well panic and make a decision at the end of the year. Like I say, right now, everyone is going to be watching DJ Uiagalelei, because the things right now, the pressure on this young man's shoulders, like it's gone from a simmer to a boil quickly.
Well, exactly. I say the schedule doesn't really ease up for them. I guess it's Boston College this coming weekend, obviously without Phil Jurkovic, but they're still a dangerous team nonetheless, and it's certainly going to be one thing to keep an eye on, because they're just one of the many heavyweights who are suffering this year, and say those 3 injuries are really going to set them back. There's just a few more we got here. So Indiana, they've lost their wide receiver DJ Matthews, another one who's done his ACL and is out for the season. He was just coming off a 120-yard performance against the Cincinnati Bearcats, obviously the 6th ranked team. That was a really good day for him, and Indiana aren't really blessed with many weapons in that receiving core. He muffed a punt catch, fell on it, and then got put up in the scrum and got injured out of that, which was a massive shame for him. He's their starting slot receiver, punt returner, kick returner. So that's a big loss for Indiana in the Big Ten. Louisville, the Cardinals, they've had 2 big injury losses. Linebacker Monty Montgomery, he got 17 tackles and a quarterback hit on the season. And wide receiver Braden Smith, who's had a very, very productive year. He's thrown a touchdown pass, he's got receiving touchdown, and he's also got a punt return touchdown. A very versatile weapon in that Louisville offense, which is very high-powered and a pleasure to watch when it does get going. But yes, both of them out with a torn ACL and torn knee ligaments respectively. And then the last one, Nevada Wolfpack wide receiver Elijah Cooks, he's suffered a 2nd successive season-ending injury. A shoulder injury did for him last season. He's now suffered a Lisfranc foot injury against Kansas State the other week. He'd already got 4 touchdown receptions on the season. And overall in college, he's got over 1,500 receiving yards and 19 touchdowns. And he is viewed as an NFL caliber player who could get drafted, but a 2nd injury putting him out for the season is probably going to relegate him to an undrafted free agent status now if he's lucky. A lot of players going down, a lot of ACLs again this season, isn't there? It seems to be an injury that's just getting more and more frequent.
It's just, I feel like the more years we go, we get these bigger, stronger, athletic guys. I feel like it's the more ACLs we're going to see. Like it's becoming the norm to lose to guys to ACLs. And 5-10 years ago, you wouldn't have said that. An ACL was a horror injury. But right now, guys are just getting them left, right, and centre. Look at like the Ravens. Like, didn't they lose like 2 or 3 of the starting running backs this year to alone to ACLs? Yeah. And like these are like, I've seen someone make miraculous recoveries, but these are like 3-4 months of no work after surgery and like 6 months before you start rehab. So it ends your year. Like, but if you do it again, like these can be career ending. Not everyone can come back from an ACL. Indiana, like you say, they lost Walt Phillier to last year's draft. So now Ty Freifogel is the only focal point of that offense for Michael Penix Jr. So that really hurts Indiana. And I saw Braden Smith. I think his passing touchdown was on a flea flicker from Malik Cunningham. Like that is a high-powered Louisville offense. So they've lost a dynamic weapon there. and they're a shootout team. Because their defense struggles to keep teams out. They have to be able to score points. So that's going to hurt them in the long run, especially in a big game this weekend that we'll talk about. They can't lose weapons. And let's say Carson Strong losing one of his trusted wide receivers, like that don't just have hurt the team, but that hurts his draft stock. Like this all hurts quarterbacks immensely.
Oh, absolutely. You know, there's a lot of receivers who've gone down in the league this year who the quarterbacks need. And say with it being a class that a lot of guys still need to prove themselves or are seen as developmental to mid-round guys, they're obviously going to want as many weapons there on that offense to boost their own stock as possible. But you know, hopefully all these players are able to come back next year, come back stronger, and have another go at it. But we'll move it on for now. So we're going to drop down now into the review of week 4. Again, a lot of games we need to talk about. So I'm going to quickly dish out the awards first that we do at the start of this. I've probably discussed them a bit because there's probably some that could be changed here. Then we're going to look at some of the winners and losers as we always do, and then focusing on some of the notable games. So in the awards category, the beating of the week given out to the team that wins by the biggest margin. Believe it or not, there was a team that won by 69 points this week that didn't win this award. It was 70, and that was Pittsburgh, who put away New Hampshire 77-7 for a 70-point gap. I mean, that's just absolutely bloody huge. I think that's a complete and utter mismatch there. The upset of the week. Now, this is one where probably Ryan will debate with me on this, and I have put some honourable mentions on here, but the upset of the week for me was Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech put up 45 points on UNC, led by Sam Howell, to a 45-22 victory. That's an absolutely huge win for them, which comes against, UNC are not the worst team in the world. They're not as good as they were last year, but Georgia Tech, no one expected them to come out 23-point winners in that one. So for me, that was a big upset, but there are honorable mentions in there as well to North Carolina State, who took down Clemson, and to Bowling Green, a team that we don't mention very often. And Ryan will probably tell you about this in a minute. They beat Minnesota, who are really, really suffering without Mohamed Ibrahim. That offense has gone to pot without them. And then the statement win of the week we're doing for this one, I've chosen Arkansas, because at the start of the season, I was mentioned about how Arkansas had the toughest schedule out of everybody. And while the start of the season wasn't the hardest, this week was their first big test against Texas A&M. Minus Haynes King, admittedly, but still a damn good football team. And they went to Texas and they beat them 20-10 to go 4-0 on the season, which now has people raising their eyebrows going, maybe they are actually not as bad a team as they thought they might be, because they were predicted to have a really bad year. I know you want to get in on this, Ryan. Are there any of those you'd change? Any others you want to mention in some of those categories at all?
Yeah, I mentioned a few weeks ago that, well, don't Alex say that Bowling Green, their head coach, was in trouble because they were for the last few years, they've been one of the worst teams in the FBS. And Minnesota opened up as 30-point favourites, and they lost. Humiliating result. Tanner Morgan almost got benched. He finished with 64 yards passing. Now, 2 years ago, this was a guy that everyone thought was going to get drafted as a quarterback, and he had a woeful day. He shut down. They kept trying to run. Now, the backup running back, I can't remember his name, they have found a guy that's moving the ball slowly, but 10 points they scored against one of the worst defenses in the nation. That is woeful. PJ Fleck must be, well, I'd say pulling his hair out, but he ain't got any. But people thought he had aspirations as a NFL head coach a year ago, and Minnesota this year are going to be struggling to make a bowl game. That is one of the worst losses I've seen in a long time. But also, it did not surprise me. Nothing surprises me this year. And I think the biggest win as well, Texas Tech. Oh, Texas dropped 70+ points on them. Oh God, if you're a Red Raiders fan this weekend, you must be devastated. You're probably somewhere shivering in a corner in a fetal position. Texas Tech do not look that good, and the hammer was dropped on them. That hurts in such a rivalry game as well. You can't live that one down.
No, and the Longhorns, they didn't exactly look that impressive a week ago when they played Arkansas. They looked relatively ordinary. They were 6-point favorites in that, and they lost. to go with a 35 point, but to have 70 dropped on you by them, I looked at that and thought, good God, that was a surprise. But I mean, I talked to another one, Miami and Derek King, they dropped 69 points to 0 winners, so they didn't even win the award of the week. That's how some of the one-sided these games are. But there were a lot of noticeable ones. But we're talking about a few teams here. Let's go into a couple of winners and losers before we focus onto the main games themselves. Who comes out as well? Let's start with the biggest winner. Who's a big winner out of this weekend?
I'd say, well, I made 2 predictions last week and they both happened. They both came true. I said TCU and SMU would be a thriller, and it was. And I said that Oklahoma State would upset Kansas State, and they did. So I'm happy that week. And SMU, they're a huge winner. Like they're probably legit. They may be the best non-Power 5 team right now. They came out against a good TCU team. They scored, 35 points. They're unbeaten. They should be ranked, or they're near getting ranked. And Tanner Mordecai threw for another 4 touchdowns. They almost threw it away with 3 interceptions, but those 2 right now, they are riding high. I bet Oklahoma wish he hadn't transferred, because he could very well have won the starting job this year at Oklahoma. He's playing lights out football with Mordecai. They're one of the huge winners, and they won that famous frying skillet, the big rivalry game. So they were having steak for tea.
It just shows the pull Lincoln Riley has for quarterbacks there, doesn't it? That Mordecai was like a cast off, but they've still got another 5-star recruit. I can't remember his name, who they were chanting for to replace Rattler on Saturday. It's just like the list of quarterbacks they have there who are great quality are endless. But I'm glad for Mordecai. I'm glad he's gone somewhere where he's appreciated, where he's going to be able to ball out. Because he's seriously increasing his draft stock at the moment. But speaking of increasing draft stock and quarterbacks, I think one of the big winners for me, and in part due to the results of some of the others, is Malik Willis, because that Liberty team is doing so well at the moment. For the season, he's nearly up at 1,000 yards already, 10 touchdowns, not a single interception thrown, and he's got 4 rushing touchdowns as well. I think he got most of them in one game as well. He's showing his dual threat capability, his arm, just little bits of worry you had about him. For me, I'm not seeing any of those obvious deficiencies anymore. I think there's a little bit that he can still work on, but I think if he carries on the way he is, especially when he goes up against Ole Miss in a few weeks, if he really proves himself there, then he's got to be in contention to be getting above Rattler and Howell now.
I'd say so. And you know what? It doesn't even matter that he lost, because I watched most of the game. He was playing Garrett Wilson, one of the best cornerbacks in the whole country. That Syracuse team, their defense is legit. And they didn't lose because of him. They did everything. He threw it on the ball. He was great on the ground. Some of the design runs were really good. He put his team in the best position to win. Unfortunately, the defense just couldn't hold up their end of the bargain. So no, he's definitely a winner. Like you say, he's climbing half a draft pick every week. He's creeping on that top 15, top 10. He's getting there now. People are starting to stand up and take notice. Because that was their first high-profile game of the year. There's more to come.
Yeah, I think we're already salivating at the prospect of Corral versus Willis, aren't we? Just those 2 offenses are going to go to town on each, on the opposition defense. I can see that being one of the games of the season if both of them get into their flow there. So, bring that on as soon as physically possible. Anyone else who stands out as a winner from this week, or shall we move on to the losers?
Yeah, I brushed on it. Give mad props to Oregon State. The last few years have not been very good. They've started the year already 3-1. I don't think anyone expected them to be this high up already in the Pac-12. They've not beaten USC at the Rose Bowl for about 60 years. It wasn't a comfortable win. They won by 23 points. They dropped 45 on USC. And this is a team that nobody rated. I know one of their players, Rajon Wright, a corner from Last Chance U. I couldn't name any other player on that roster, and they're holding their own. They could be making a push for, a Pac-12 conference championship game. So that they've really flown under the radar. I'm worried about playing them.
I know, and considering, they didn't really give them much focus at the start of the season, for them to do what they have is, impressive. And hopefully they're able to carry that on. I'll throw another team in there. We're going to mention them shortly, but North Carolina State, they are huge winners from this weekend because they've had a 3-1 start to the season. Obviously, they've just put away Clemson, but I watched a lot of tape on them last year because I did the rookie reviews for Aleem McNeil, so I ended up watching a lot of North Carolina State tape, and they didn't look that impressive last year. There were aspects of the game that were good, but I think they finished about 6-4. It wasn't the greatest record in the world, and they looked a lot of problems there, but this year they look a lot better as a team, and we're going to talk about it very shortly. But all aspects of the game look good. They're working together as a team. They may not be the most talented individually, but as a team, they're coming together and proving a very formidable outfit this year. And it's great to see again. But another one who, for me, just huge winner from this week.
Yeah, because like I say, for anyone to put this into perspective, Clemson had not lost to a non-ranked team in 97 weeks. That is nearly 2 whole years of not. That's gameplay. That's not calendar years. So, like I say, that's like 3-4 years maybe worth of seasons. That's how long it took to someone upset them. And it was a wild finish. When that kicker missed that 3rd game-winning field goal with time expired, I thought, this is it. Clemson going to win. They're going to dodge another bullet. But it never delivers. Overtime in college is such a good rule. Please bring it to the NFL because it's so fun.
Exactly. Let's say Clemson got away with it against Georgia Tech the week before, but this time they got found out, and rightly so. Speaking of them, they're losers. So we'll move on to a few of the losers of this week now. And for me, one of the big ones, and I watched this game very closely, is Texas A&M. They are missing Haynes King, something fierce. Like I say, Arkansas were they were massive outsiders for that game, but they dominated it from start to finish. The only time when, A&M looked any good is when KJ Jefferson got a late hit on him and had to sit out for a few drives for Arkansas. They lost a bit of their fluidity and they had to punt it a few times. But apart from that, they look very ordinary, and this promised such a big season for them. I saw people saying, they were in the top 2 or 3 teams in the country, potentially going to the playoffs and doing something there, but that's not happening now that Haynes King's gone.
No, we were told that the Texas A&M defense was like a top 5 in the country. They just gave up over 400 yards of offense. It's clearly not true. I'm not being funny, but like I say, we have been led to believe things that are not true. This A&M team that went 9-1 a year and a half ago, with some lesser players, they were playing more for each other. That team then was better than this team now, hands down. They should have made the playoffs, maybe I thought, with that team. But this team, no, it just, like I say, losing Haynes King's one thing, but Isaiah Spiller didn't step up. He's one of the draft most eligible best running backs. And when it mattered, he wasn't able to put the game on his shoulders, and he just couldn't see them over the line. They generated very little offense through him. Whether that was through him and the offensive line, they don't have a plan B, and they've been exposed.
Yeah, and Zach Calzada doesn't seem any good for them at goal. He had about 150 yards and an interception. He didn't throw a touchdown pass. It's just obviously a big downgrade, isn't it, on King? And they're not going to win as many as I don't think under him. They've got some tough fixtures coming up as well, so they could potentially just slide right out of contention before King gets back, which is a shame, but that's what happens. You have to deal with these injuries. Who else comes out of this weekend as a big loser for you?
Well, I'm sorry, Ash Sorden, if you're watching, but Florida State. I think I've mentioned them every week. They've now started 0-4, I think, for the first time since 1984. So that tells you how things are going wrong. Nothing is working. Mackenzie Milton has pretty much won the job now, and it just looks bad. I feel so sorry for the guy, but like I say, I'm slowly losing that sympathy for him now because he's won the starting job, but he's not doing anything with it, even though he looks healthy. So the sympathy is wavering a little bit, which kind of sucks. They just can't generate anything on offense. Turnovers galore, they lost a few fumbles. We'll talk about one guy later that's actually capitalizing off how bad they look. because he looks outstanding. But no, yeah, they've got some uphill climb to even get to a 6-6 year. I just can't see it. Mike Norvell, for how much he's getting paid, like, I don't see any way he can turn this round or survive it. They need to clean shop at the end of the year for me, unfortunately. And he hasn't even been around that long.
Yeah, I agree. This must have been a rotten weekend for Ash. I don't. Or is he a Villa fan? He might have got away with that one. But apart from that, in the world of the NFL and college football, he's had an absolutely rotten weekend. So our commiserations there to you, Ash. But yeah, they are certainly big losers from me. I don't think anyone expected them to go 0-4. Not to start the season like this. And I think to finish this off for me, another team who's really suffered and not done well, and a player in particular who are losers from this week are Brock Purdy and Iowa State. They've beaten by Baylor. No, they're 2-2. A lot of good things was expected here, but I don't think Purdy's really done what people expected him to do. Obviously, he got absolutely manhandled in the Derby loss to Iowa, and to lose to who are now ranked Baylor, but they weren't before this. That's not a good season for them either, is it? 2-2, not the opposition they've had.
No, like say, when someone was saying, like say they might be struggling. At this rate, they're not going to make the Big 12 championship game. They're not going to replicate what they have done in previous years. Brock Purdy is sinking like a stone. Like, he will hate everything about this year because his draft stock is absolutely plummeting. He is teetering on undraftable at some points, like, because he's just made so many errors, interceptions against like Iowa. Like, he was forcing passing the windows that weren't there. There's pressure on him and it's crumbling. And the Matt Campbell needs to do anything, like say, because apparently the Lions were interested in him a year ago. But I think right now, I think he's been benched already a few times, but at this rate, he's going to get replaced completely. Like, he is about on the verge of losing his job, and that will absolutely kill anything that's going to happen at the next level, unfortunately. But no, there's only one team in Iowa that's showing anything that like competing this year for a playoff team, and it's not the Cyclones.
Yeah, I think it looks like he's probably going to go the way of someone like, I guess, a Peyton Ramsey, isn't he? Where he's going to get thrown around from team to team. And I think he's just actually signed with the Bears, I believe, or he's trying out with them. But I think that's the future that awaits him currently, which is a shame. But he may turn it round. Who knows? But we will see. So we'll move it on now to the game reviews. So there's a lot of games that we can talk about this weekend. We'll go into some of the ones we've already mentioned and just get them out of the way. So obviously, North Carolina State beating Clemson. That game finished 27-21. And as Ryan mentioned, it's one of the first times they've lost to an unranked team in forever. They could have well lost in regular time. It went into overtime and everyone expected Clemson to win. Their drive stalled. North Carolina went down and it looked quite easy in the end. Now, I just want to point out sort of two big differences between the teams here. So I'm just going to list off some of the stats from this here just to make my point. So North Carolina State, their quarterback, Devin Leary, he went 32 of 44, 238 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions thrown. In the running game, Ricky Person Jr. went 21 for 93 at 4.3 yards per carry. Zonovan Knight went 23 for 79 at 3.4 yards per carry. And then in the receiving game, the wide receivers, Amika Emzi, he got 14 for 116 and a touchdown. And Devin Carter went 5 for 54 and 2 touchdowns. You listen to those stats, and for an unranked team to beat like a big powerhouse like this, usually you would expect like massive numbers to leap off. Someone has a superhuman game to get them over the line, but there's nothing there that actually, I mean, I'm not taking away from Emzy, 116 yards and a touchdown, but this was a team effort from their offense. The quarterback was serviceable. He did enough, not a massive amount of yards, 244 touchdowns. The running backs were only going at 4.5 yards per carry. So it wasn't anything spectacular. The receivers, again, nothing spectacular, but they got it done as a team. They came together, all performed well, and were able to put it away.
It was a weird game because, like I say, for all those stats, they had nearly double the players and double time the possession. It kept getting to 3rd and 4th down. Like they kept having to like hold their nerve, draw Clemson offside. They've converted a fair few third and fourth downs. Like they kept their bottle. Like I'll give them that. Like not many teams would have kept them drives going. There was penalties. They kept moving backwards, like say, like all these plays, but not many yards. Like the discipline wasn't always there, but they managed to just squeak over third and short, fourth. Like they went for it a lot of times. They missed 3 field goals and open play, so they left a lot of points on the board. So when you look at those stats, most of the time you won't think that team won. You won't look at those stats and think, yeah, they were the winner. Like they just controlled the clock. They did it really, really well because they had a chance to just walk off with a kick win. But no, that every player played for one each other. This was probably one of Devin Leary's worst games. Like say, he was asked to pass so much. He's actually a really good quarterback. I'm a huge fan of Donovan Knight. I'm pretty sure he's draft eligible this year. Like he's flying under the radar really nicely. But no, this was just a great team win. And the defense just hounded it. Like DJ had no time in the box. Like the offensive line was really struggling, like say, to create holes for Will Shipley even before he was healthy. And Justin Ross, he just had nothing going all day. He showed a lot of visible frustration in that game. Like it was as good on all 3 phases as you could ask for to sneak out a squeaky bum time win. And it's one of the biggest wins, I'd say, in probably their franchise history. Like it was the perfect storm. Like injuries, they had so much of the ball and they managed to see it out. Like anyone can go back and watch it. Like it's pretty nerve-wracking. You feel like an NC State fan.
Yeah, and you mentioned the defense there, and again, the numbers aren't massive. They only got 2 sacks. This isn't like they went to town on DJ. I mean, was it defensive tackle Corey Durden was top. He got 1.5 sacks. So he accounted for most of them and 6 tackles. But again, it was just an all-round team effort. But someone's not gone in there blown up for 5, 6 sacks again. Something you might expect from a defender to give his team a chance in such a big thing. But the reason I read these out is because I now want to just quickly go through Clemson's and show the difference. Because obviously, a team effort there from NC State. But looking at Clemson, so DJ Uangalele, quarterback, he went 12 for 26. So that's less than half. He only got 111 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. In the running back game, lead runner, DJ Uangalele, 9 carries for 63 yards, roughly 7 yards per carry. After that, the next guy, Will Shipley, 11 carries for 36 yards at 3.3 yards per carry. And that was it. There was one other running back who got 2 for 5 yards. That was it. No running game whatsoever. In the receiving core, it's even more concerning. So you got Justin Ross. He went 8 for 77 with 2 touchdowns. And Joseph Ngata, who we've mentioned a few times, he got 2 for 36. There were only 2 other players targeted in that game apart from them 2. And their stats, and they were both the same, 1 target each, -1 yard. Now, when you're putting, DJ is a rookie quarterback. When you are putting on him to throw to win games, but he's also your leading rusher, that's a lot of pressure to be able to put on a quarterback, a rookie one, when you can't give him a run game, when he's only got 2 targets that he trusts to throw at. It just makes you think, for a team with Clemson's resources and players, that tells you a picture there. He's got 2 targets to throw at, and he's not got much of a run game. And he's a rookie who's having all the pressure put on him. There's no wonder they're struggling, surely.
No, I agree. Like I say, a lot of those rushes as well, they weren't designed. Like he was scrambling. He was getting out of the pocket. He made some fantastic plays to keep drives alive. Like I was amazed how he scrambled sometimes. And like I say, only Justin Ross around on that and say, I did my best. Like he worked with these short span. He did 2 touchdowns. Like I say, he managed to get some space. Like I say, there was no separation. Like they only got 2 sacks, so that there wasn't everyone in his face, but no one could get free. Like he was holding on to that ball way too long, waiting for things to happen, and it just wasn't materializing. Like right now, they're in a team in trouble because they don't have a plan B. Like there's no plan B. Like Will Shipley's gone. Like you say, Dixon has transferred out. Who's the next man up? Because you can't have DJ being your leading rusher every week, because if that's happening, you're losing games. Dabo Swinney needs to do something. Like, so he has to find someone that can play running back and establish the run, because that is what Clemson are. They're a run-first team. Travis Etienne ran, so Trevor Lawrence could set up the pass and make it look good, not the other way around. Travis made Trevor look good, but right now that doesn't happen. And Will Shipp, like I say, is one of the best running fast start back in recruits. He's just a freshman, so he gets the benefit of the doubt this year, but they're just not creating the holes. He should be putting up monster numbers. He's not. Like I say, until that is fixed, like this scheme, like the offensive scheme doesn't look good, Clemson are going to struggle. I'll give one guy respect to the linebacker, like Skorsky. He had like 20 tackles. That dude was everywhere. Like, fair play to him. Like, he single-handedly kept that game to overtime. Like, he was fantastic. But no, you cannot rely on guys like that to just keep bailing you out all the time.
Yeah, I was just about to mention Spectre, actually 9 solo tackles, 10 assisted tackles. So yeah, 19 on the day. He must have been hurting the next morning after taking 19 hits in a game. But yeah, just to finish it on off, I feel for DJ. I'm worried for it because the reason I was so high on him is the play I saw last year when he filled in for Lawrence and he had the running game and he had the offense that Lawrence did. He looked a very good quarterback in his own right, and his rushing ability was not scrambling away. It was designed. It gave that offense a new, a little another knot in it to deal with. But this year, he's just been fed to the wolves, and obviously everyone's going to say, well, Trevor Lawrence has gone. He's always going to be judged against that. And I just don't think he's getting set up for success there. And I think it's, if it carries on like this and you've said he gets dropped, I think he's going to have to find his success somewhere else if he wants to get the love for his draft stock back, which is, for me, such a shame because, again, I'm still high on him, but it's just situation. He's in a no-win situation. I guess it's a bit like Goff here. He's in a really hard situation to succeed and win the fans over, isn't he?
Yeah, it's not fair to compare this guy to Trevor Lawrence. Like, that's just not fair. Like I said, this guy's like pretty much like, he's had like 1.5 seasons. Like, I know he came from St. John Bosco High School. They're a footballing powerhouse. So he came with this reputation. Like, the pressure was on him before he ever even got to Clemson. Like, he's a kid that grows up with pressure, like winning national titles. If he had Travis Etienne right now, he would probably look fantastic. I think no doubt the pressure would be taken off him immensely and he could just do his thing. But right now, he's having to worry about everything. He's trying to, like, say, tuck a ball, design runs. He's trying to scramble, which Trevor Lawrence never had to do, did he? No one ever made Lawrence run out of the pocket and try to get a first down. Like, he's doing a lot more than Lawrence was ever asked to do, like I say. And he's got one senior receiver and he's got a young, like I say, Nagata. Like, it's just not set up for him. And like I say, if they do bring in, they've got next man up. Like, if this year is bad, is he going to enter his name at the portal? I feel like he could, because we've seen a lot of guys, like, after one bad year, the fans turn on them. They think, screw this, I'm packing the bags. I'm going somewhere, because every other team in the country would be glad to have me.
Oh, God, yeah. I'm hoping he finds his way there, but if not, I'm hoping there's someone who's going to take him on because he is still a hell of a quarterback in my book. But we'll move it on because obviously we've still got a lot to touch on. What game do you want to have a look at next? I know there's a lot here. Are there any that really took you this weekend?
That's a good question. Like say Michigan State, like, they took on a decent Nebraska side, like, and they managed to come away with that squeaky win. For them, it's funny because for them it doesn't matter how they win; they just want to win. Whereas Michigan Wolverines care about how they look good, like, and how they play. But Michigan State are just loving it. Like, they will take wins however they can get them. Like, and they showed a real resolute defense in that overtime period to steal that win. Like, that showed a little bit more that they can do the ugly stuff. They can get down and gritty when a team can slow down the offense. So I think that was a big win for them, and like, that'll really boost up morale even further.
Well, yeah, I mean, I put it up in our Discord chat earlier because I saw this amazing stat that was there, and I think they were 13-10 up at the half. And in the second half, they had 14 total yards of offense, I believe it was, and not a single first down. But they won because, Nebraska scored 10 points in that second half, but the Spartans scored on a punt return think it was Jaden Reed. I could be wrong, but I think that was him to force it into overtime. And obviously they went and won there. But how many teams have 14 overall passing yards, 14 overall offensive yards, and no first downs in the second half of a game? They're winning by 3 and still come out victors on the end. It does say that defense just did an absolute hell of a job for them when the running game faltered, as it occasionally will.
I don't know what Nebraska were playing at. I don't know how they lost that game. Like, how on earth they didn't come out of that second half with more points? Like, they'll be shooting themselves. Like, that they will not have been happy on that bus home. Like I say, they really let one slip there, didn't they? Like you say, you will take these cheap wins however they come. Like I say, they had to do it on the defensive side of the ball in that half. And like you say, special teams. If you've got special teams playmakers, you're always in a game. It's not often you need, like say, a punt return touchdown to take it to overtime, but Elaine was there and he took it. So all 3 factors of the game showed up for. So, like I said, they'll be delighted.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is, the Wolverines defense hasn't really been tested per se yet. I know against Rutgers they struggled a bit, but this is the strength of the Spartans over the Wolverines. Their offense usually fires, but on the weekends, and as I say, every team has a bad weekend. They now know they can rely on their defense to step up otherwise, whereas with the Wolverines, they don't know if they can throw their way to a win yet, whereas the Spartans have done it both ways. So, it remains to be seen, but I'm really happy for them because I saw them get such a lot of rubbish last year. I know they beat the Wolverines last year, but apart from that, it wasn't a great season. And they seem like a bunch of like loyal, hardy souls, like a lot of the Lions fans are. So, to see them succeed so well is good. And hopefully it carries on for them. I'm not sure where they're at next weekend. I'll have a look later, but hopefully it carries on. So we'll probably move on to the other big upset now. And I mean, we've talked about the presumptive number 1 quarterback in this year's draft, but the presumptive number 2, Sam Howell and UNC, I don't think anyone could have seen the regression from there. I know they lost all their big playmakers, but you still wouldn't expect to see them struggle as much as they have. They went down to Georgia Tech 45-22. And I mean, this just wasn't a small sneaker game. This was a blowout completely and utterly. And, Sam Howell was he was really, really bullied badly in this one. So 8 sacks for Georgia Tech. Their linebackers had a really busy day. And then Charlie Thomas, he got 8 tackles, 2.5 sacks. Quez Jackson, 10 tackles, another sack in there. The linebackers really found success against that offensive line to get to Howell. But on the offensive side for them, it was Jeff Sims' day for them. Their quarterback, he ran for more yards than he threw. So he threw for 10 of 13 for 112 yards and 1 touchdown. He was the leading rusher, 10 for 128 yards at nearly 13 yards a carry and 3 touchdowns. And their regular running back, Jahmyr Gibbs, he got 64 yards and a touchdown as well, nearly 5 yards a carry. And then on the receiving side, the top receiver only had 48 yards, but we were used to seeing UNC absolutely kill people with the run last year with Carter and Javonte Williams, but this was death by running from Georgia Tech, and they could do nothing about it.
No, it's Georgia Tech is funny because I know in the last 2 years, they used to run the triple offense. They were built like Army, Navy. They were always a running team. They didn't have passing quarterbacks. They didn't throw the ball that often, but now like they've thrown out the window. Like they made a promise a year or 2 ago to become a passing offense. Like say, so they were moving the ball well, and they're hard to play against. Like say, Jeff Sims is a good quarterback. Like say, he has a great eye. He knows when to keep the ball. He knows when to tuck and run. He's incredibly hard to bring down. Like say in the open field. Like say, he torched them when he got outside that pocket. Like he was making people miss. Like say, he was clever. He knows when and when not to try his luck, when to take the first down. Like say, Sam Howell had no time in the pocket. We saw it in the opening game of the season, the offensive line. It was just like turnstiles, just letting people through. Like, and Howell, even though he sacked so many times, he didn't even play that bad a game. Like you'd expect someone at 8 sacks to play worse than he did. And he still managed to like find Josh Downs a few times, like who's emerging as quite a good receiver, but on phase of the ball, the defense has really let them down all year. Like I say, those linebackers, they couldn't. There was no setting the edge. There was none of this stopping the rushing. And their season is very much just crumbling to pieces. The ACC as a whole this year is bad. It's just bad. I've said this today, like Clemson, Virginia Tech, Virginia, you got Miami, you got like UNC, all these teams that we should be talking about. None of them are delivering. They've all been hyped up too high, and now they're all falling flat on their faces. And it's bloody fantastic. I love it.
Oh, don't we love to see a little bit of chaos amongst some of the better teams? But, you touched on it there. Sam Howell didn't have a bad game considering he took 8 sacks. I mean, he was 25 of 39, 306 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also got a rushing touchdown as well. So as far as he was concerned, it was a good day. But I think unequivocally his draft stock is tied with UNC's performances this year. I feel that's unfair, but people want to know how he can get on without all the targets he had before. And these losses, a couple of big painful ones now to the Virginia sides and now to Georgia Tech. I mean, but he's not getting back up. I mean, you look at the running game, Ty Chandler, their leading runner, 17 for 48 yards at 2.8 yards per carry. From a team that had Michael Carter and Javonte Williams destroying everybody last year and just giving Howell all the time and work he needed to work in the passing game, that's a huge, regression in the running game to less than 3 yards a carry. I mean, receivers did well. Emery Simmons, 3 for 110. The tight end Kamari Morales, 7 for 66 and a touchdown. Josh Downs, you mentioned him. He was 8 for 53 and a touchdown, and he's done well. But on the receiving side, the defense, just 1 sack towards Georgia Tech. I mean, and this is the bigger school, but to be outsacked 8-1, the defense isn't doing its job. The running game, they've just not replaced it. It was always going to be hard to replace those two, but you think you could do better than 3 yards a carry to try and help Sam Howell, because his O-line's abandoned him. His running game's abandoned him. He's on a hide into nothing, as I say, especially with his form linked intrinsically to that of the team.
Which is really unfair, because actually, if anything, this should improve his draft stock, because he's showing that he can put up numbers. He's got like 1 receiver, no running game, a patchwork O-line, but people are going to bash him for these losses, let's say, which is very unfair, because transversely, all the Oklahoma are winning, they still look crap to my eyes, let's say, but Rattler will manage to get away with this. His stock will take less of a dent, even though I think he's got a worse attitude. Like, it's not very fair in that sense. Like, I think Howell probably still will maybe be a first-round quarterback, but there's no chance we're taking him. Not with the first pick. He's going to be end at first, and people don't like the end of the first for quarterback. He could slip to the second. He could go on like full snakes and ladders slide at this rate, and that's not a fair reflection of how he's playing. Like, he was running for his life. If I was getting sacked 8 times, I don't think I could throw for 300 yards. Like, throwing off his back foot, like say throwing on the run because he was getting chased out the pocket. He had to make every throw in the book, and like you say, it still just won't be good enough at the end of the day. So you should, like you say, he could have transferred, like, because of that COVID, like, could transfer. You didn't have to sit out a year. I'm thinking maybe now he wish he had done.
No, it's not good for him. I think he was always going to be in a tough position this year. And I mean, he didn't even throw an interception or anything either, which is all the more, when you're running and you're trying to throw wildly and you throw, he didn't. And I mean, what was he, 25 or 39? So that's decent accuracy as well, considering the sheer amount of pressure he's under. But, I find myself more and more every week rooting for him a little bit more. Maybe not enough for us to draft him just yet, but I find myself very sympathetic to his plight. So, it remains to be seen, but hopefully they can give him something to work with this year, because it's not fair if his draft stock is affected by UNC's form, because he has absolutely nothing to do with this. And I'd stress that to anyone listening. Don't blame UNC's form on Howell. It's not him. He's playing really well, just like he did before. He's just not got the weapons and the support there with him. That's all I would say on that one. Been through some games. There's still a lot to go on. I mean, the early game last week, I don't know whether you saw it, Appalachian State and Marshall. Did you have a chance to watch that one?
I watched some of it. It was closer than I thought it was going to be.
Marshall is sneaky good this year. I mean, I'm big on Marshall anyhow because of Devontae Beckett coming to the Lions, and I'm still running the Beckett is better campaign on Twitter, and I'm going to make it stick. But Marshall looks so good. I mean, this finished 31-30 to Appalachian State. That's closer than it had any right to be. It couldn't have been any closer, to be fair, but this was an offensive fest, really. I mean, the defenses, there's nothing of note to see in there, but both offenses kicked each other, kicked the opposite defense's asses for this one. And it was great to see.
Yeah, like I say, they gave a really good account themselves, Marshall. Like I said, they've got a good young quarterback that last year, I think last year when their quarterback threw like 8 interceptions in a game, but before that, he was on like a tear of the league. Like, I think it's called Grant Wells. I think that's the Marshall quarterback. Like, he was fantastic last year. Yeah, like they've got a good they've got prospect, they've got hope there. Like, they're taking wins as well they can get them. Like, say, looking to cause an upset, and they almost pulled off a big scalp because Appalachian State are one of those teams, like say, that are elevating themselves to one of those group of 5 like big boys. Like say, so they were lucky to survive that one.
Oh yeah, I think this is a rare one where I think both teams probably won from this. I think Appalachian State, because they proved, we can overcome, these tough games where the upstart comes in and tries to put one over on us, whereas Marshall, they nearly beat, as you say, an ascending team who've got a very good squad there. And I think, it works well for both of them. So, I mean, a lot of big standout performances in this one. For Marshall, you mentioned, oh God, where's he gone? Grant Wells. I think he's in the top 5 passers in the country at the minute. I think he's at about 1,300 yards already. But he was 18 of 33, 270 yards, a touchdown. The Marshall running back, Rasheen Ali, he got 83 yards and a touchdown at nearly 5 yards a carry. He also got a very lovely 97-yard kick return touchdown as well. A bit reminiscent of Jamal Agnew in the way he weaved in and out everywhere and was just gone. That was wonderful to see. And then in their receiving game, Xavier Gaines, the tight end, 104 yards, a touchdown. Shadid Ahmed, 81 yards there. But I mean, for Appalachian State, they just filled their boots on offense. They've got so many options there. Nate Knoll, the running back, he got 187 yards running on just 20 carries. Didn't get a touchdown, but that's still nearly 10 yards a carry over 20 is really impressive. And Cameron Peoples, he only got 78 yards, but he got 3 touchdowns. The running backs really filled the boots. And at wide receiver, Corey Sutton, 10 for 127 and a touchdown. And Thomas Hennigan, 9 for 123. It was really one for the offense that game. And if there's any highlights of it anywhere, I would implore you to go and watch it. It was a hell of a lot of fun. Any others that stood out for you this week? Anything else you watched that intrigued you?
I think I watched some game. Wisconsin. I don't know what's up for them, but they look really bad. I don't know if anyone's watching this or thinking, but I saw, I think it's is it Graham Mertz, their quarterback? He was one of the first ones when the NIL started. He created his own brand, like he's got his own thing. Like, he is terrible. He is killing Wisconsin. Like, I thought they were going to be one of the major players in that conference. Like, say, they started the season like they were going to be ranked, but no, they look really bad. And they had another bad weekend. It's discerning. Like I say, these were someone that was like just like a perennial 9-10 win team, but they've fallen off a cliff this year for my eyes. It's quite worrying.
Well, they play the Wolverines this coming weekend, don't they? And
Yeah.
they're going to be on full show there. So I'm interested to see. It's like you say, Mertz is meant to be good. And, is there a chance they might be able to? I think this is the biggest threat to the Wolverines yet. But as you say, seeing what you saw, if that running game gets going, you figured it's probably going to be another victory for the Wolverines, isn't it? They just don't look. It's odd. There's a lot of those teams in the middle, like Nebraska, Wisconsin, Illinois. You just can't really put a label on them, but they're not really that good, are they?
No, they're in a middling pack. Wisconsin should be above these teams. Like, they're better than them. They have been for years, like you say. But no, like, Mertz is not the guy. He's never going to be the guy. Like, it's killing him. Like, they're imploding, like you say, and he just can't be trusted.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the other one I want to mention here, I guess, team to give props to is Baylor. Obviously, I watched a little bit of their game against Iowa State, and, Baylor look a good side. I don't know where they've come from this year, but they're 4-0 currently, and Iowa State aren't the biggest. They're not a pushover, and to go in there and win by 2 points, drop over 31 on them. I'm interested to see where they go now, because I must admit I don't know a ton about that team. I don't know if you know any more than me, but just looking down some of the bits on there, again, it's not massively impressive. The quarterback, 164 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then the rushing, there's only about 100 yards rushing in there. So they've only put up about 270 yards of offense, and they've put 31 points down. It's not like they're going out there and absolutely dominating, but again, they're just doing enough to win, it seems.
Yeah, before this weekend, I didn't even know Baylor were undefeated. Like, they have gone totally under the radar. Like, I didn't even realize until I saw a result. I was amazed they were 4-0 because no one's even talking about them. Like I say, that the defense has really stepped up. Like I say, they capitalized well off all the turnovers. Like I say, they gave short field position. They were efficient. Like I say, Iowa State gave them the ball and they scored from it. Like I say, they didn't have to do too much. I think it's one of them things like it's just sneaking into the rankings. It's going to be interesting to see what they do if they can get a run now. Like I say, with no major key weapons that I'm aware of. Like I say, after like Charlie Brewer and that have gone, like I don't even know who starting quarterback is this year.
No, certainly one they're going to have to do the homework on. And just before we finish that game, I think Iowa State, they had a bad one, but give props out to their running back, Brees Hall. Bless him, he tried very hard. He had 27 carries for 190 yards and 2 touchdowns. And if that wasn't enough, he also in the receiving game went 5 for 51 and a touchdown. So, 32 touches in the game, 241 yards of offense, 3 touchdowns. He's certainly the standout player on that team offensively now, I feel.
Yeah, they're relying on him now, like you say. And this is helping his draft stock immensely, like you say. I'd say he's a top 3 running back. So all these touches just give him a bigger portfolio, put him on a national stage. So for him, like I say, for him, the results aren't attached to his draft stock, whereas they are Brock Purdy. Like, it don't matter if Iowa State lose. If he does that, like, he looks great. Like I say, that's where running backs sometimes get a bit of leniency. If the team loses, but he don't cough up the ball when he does well, he did his best, didn't he? He tried his best.
Exactly. And they say just where some struggle, there is opportunity for others. And with this running back group now, it's a bit hard to pin down the order that they're in, but he's certainly moving himself up that list. Are there any others you want to mention before we move on this week? Any others? I mean, I'm just going to make one final comment for West Virginia. Fair play to them. They beat Virginia Tech last week, which was an upset. They nearly beat the Sooners. There was only a 3-point one. They were winning going into the last quarter. Oklahoma really squeaked their way through that, but I've been really impressed with them. Specifically, their defense really has held up well this year. And I think any team who's going to be playing them is in a lot of trouble. So don't take them lightly, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, one last one. UTSA, the Roadrunners, they're now 4-0, and they've got one of the sleeper running backs in the draft, Sincere McCormick. I love that name. Like, they are really one to fear. Like, they are on upset alert every week. They look like they could beat anyone right now.
Definitely another one to keep your eyes on there. Just before we finish off the this week's review, your 5 guys who you look at, anyone stand out there this week, or was it a quiet week for them?
It was more a quiet week. Like say, I think Hodges Tomlinson, like say, the TCU defense didn't have a good day, but he got I think he got an interception, so he did well against a high-powered SMU offense. Milton Robertson, like say, he was quiet this week again, even though he's having a good year. He got the interception against BYU. Like say, we're struggling with him because I don't know if he's an outside linebacker or an edge. Like, there are doubts about his game where he fits in. Malik Willis, like say, he had a great week. Like say, he ran the ball really well, even with a losing effort. Like say, he just gained more fans. Matt Corral, like say, they were just, like say, they're building up this Alabama game. Like say, so that's going to be a one. I'm hoping, like say, this isn't where he has a meltdown. Like, yeah. I'm like, see how he goes against this defense, which is going to be fantastic to see. And Dontario Drummond, like you say, he will be linked to it. I'm going to be watching him very carefully how he does against likes of Jordan Battle on the back end of that Alabama defense. So they hopefully will have talked about next week.
Yeah, we'll move on to that game real shortly. Let's go through those. Carson Strong, they're on a bye this week. The bye weeks have started now, so some players are going to be getting a week off. Nevada had a bye week. Receivers, really good week for my receivers. Garrett Wilson, again for Ohio State, a bit of stuff going on there, but he led the trio of great receivers that they have there. He was 4 for 124. He's got nearly 400 yards already this season and 3 touchdowns over 4 games. So he's just proving how good a guy he is, especially because he started slow in the first game. Treylon Burks has really come into the show. He went 6 for 167 against Texas A&M and a touchdown. He's averaging nearly 30 yards per catch, which is just, for a guy his size, it's not, and with his speed, you can understand why he gets the ball. He's so hard to bring down. His touchdown was an 80-yarder. He's just, and Texas A&M, that's not a bad defense. It's not the greatest, but it's not a bad defense either. He had a lot of success against them. And I said right at the start of the season, their strength of schedule is going to give him a real platform to build on. If he balls out against some of these defenses, people will take notice. And with a performance like this, that's absolutely huge for him and his draft stock. So he's really done that. He's about 300 yards in his last 2 games now. So he's really starting to hit form at the right time. Christian Harris, the linebacker for Alabama, who's going to have his hands full next week. He got 4 solo tackles, an assisted tackle, a quarterback hit, and a pass breakup this weekend gone. So he had a good weekend, and another who's having a solid season. He's another one of my watch out list for the first round this year. I'd love to have him on our side already, but we'll see. And then Olafosio still coming back from an injury, so he didn't play that much. He got 6 tackles, but that was it. That's it for the 5 to watch this week. So now we're going to move it on, and we're going to take a look at week 5 that's coming up already. And bearing in mind there's a week 0 here. This is already the 6th weekend in the college season. This is an absolute stacked, I know we say it most weekends, but this is a big stacked weekend. There's a lot of ranked battles here, a lot where we're going to see, those wanting to be contenders really cementing their places here. I mean, you've already mentioned it, right? So we may as well start there. Ole Miss, ranked 12th. They're coming up against Alabama, number 1, who've really had very few issues this season. Obviously, they struggled with the Gators. They could have lost that, but they didn't. Their resilience stood up. And I think the big questions here, obviously, you've mentioned, how does Matt Corral perform on the biggest stage of them all? This is the biggest platform he'll have all season to really shoot his draft stock up there. And can this high-powered offense hurt the Alabama defense like the Gators did? I think the key for this one is they just have to stay true to what team they are. Surely, because the Gators went there, they're a running team, and they ran it down their throat. They didn't try to deviate for the occasion. They just stuck to what they were good at and went for it and nearly won. So I guess that's got to be the same for Ole Miss this week.
Yeah, they need to establish a good run game. Jerrion Ely and Scotty Phillips, they're 2 they're dynamic running back pair. They have to be able to move the chains. Like I said, they're going to bring a lot of pressure, Alabama. They're going to have to pick up blocks. They're going to have to do the dirty work sometimes because they're going to throw everything at Corral. They're going to give him no time in the pocket, and they've got to be able to escape. Like I said, they're going to be looking for these quick outs, check downs. They're going to sit the running backs behind, like I said, linebackers. Like a lot of the passes could very well go to the running backs. Like they're not going to have much time to survey the field. He's going to have to get rid of the ball quicker, which is sometimes where the mistakes come from. So the running backs are really going to have to help him out this week. This is not a game he will win just throwing, because this is a well-respected defense. Now, for me personally, I think this is a game where, like Liberty, the result won't necessarily hurt his stock if he plays a clean game. What I want to see is 1 interception or less. If he does that for me, and he throws 2 or 3 touchdowns, a couple of 100 yards, even if they win or lose, that is successful. Because like you say, last year, LSU, Arkansas, big stage, shit the bed through 11 interceptions. Everyone thought, this guy's a laughing joke. He's a joke. Like when it comes down to it, the eyes are on him. I think this year he has matured. I think, like I say, he has grown so much in this off season. I do not think he's going to collapse this weekend. And I think this is upset watch. This is a team, if Alabama don't take Ole Miss seriously, Ole Miss could put 30, 40 points on them very quickly in quick succession, because these receivers, like I say, they're going to give probably hell. Like they're going to not be easy to cover. Like they're dynamic. Dontario Drummond's having a fantastic year. Like they're going to have to try find a way to stop him. And Corral's worked on that fast release. Like I say, he's not taking his pressure. Like this is going to be a fantastic game. Like it's going to be one of the best to watch this weekend.
I was about to ask you, your upset radar is pretty good this year, and if you're listening and you're betting on college, listen to Ryan's upset radar. But is it pinging for this one? Do you really see Ole Miss as having a chance in this one, or is it?
I think this will be a shootout. Like I say, it'll be close. I think if the offense is firing, it's going to be all on the defense. Can like Sam Williams on the defensive line, like can they keep the discipline? Alabama are going to try wind them up. Louisville wind them up, and they had two of them ejected in the first half. They've got to stop the flags, no penalties. And yeah, I think I could see like a 40-35 win. It's going to be a big scorer. I'm going to see there's going to be 70, 80 points here easily.
There you go. That's probably definitely, if you're going to watch one game this weekend, that's certainly one of the ones you have to see. Providing Ole Miss show up, it's going to be an absolute ding-dong scrap. So we will probably be talking about that one a lot next week, but we'll move it on. And this is probably not going to be one of the most talked about games this weekend, but one of the ones I'm most looking forward to, and I put it in the Discord earlier, number 5 ranked Iowa this weekend playing Maryland. And you think, not the biggest names in the world, what's going on there, but these are two teams. Iowa have surprised a lot of people. They are both 4-0, but for me, this is all about Taulia Tagovailoa, obviously Tua's younger brother. A lot was made, Tua's struggling in the big leagues at the minute. A lot's been made. How's his younger brother going to get on? But he's doing incredibly well at Maryland at the minute. Both these teams are 4-0 currently. And Taulia himself, his throwing accuracy is at 75.5%. He's already amassed 1,340 yards, 10 touchdowns, and just 1 interception this season. This is his big stage. This is his stage to announce that, he's here and he's a big deal. And coming against an Iowa team who are very good and they're 5th, they're ranked on merit. If Maryland can come up here and cause an upset, or can at least be really competitive in this game with Taulia doing well, I think this has the potential to be a barnstormer of a game.
It does, yeah, because this is a clash of styles. Iowa rely heavily on that defense, those linebackers and those safeties. And Maryland have got some of the best receivers in the country, and they've got the better Tua brother. I think Taulia has a higher ceiling than Tua. I think when they hit the draft together, when they're both in the league, I think this Tua brother is going to supersede his brother. Because from what I've seen to him, like since transferring, which was a brilliant decision, he wasn't willing to bide his time. He took a gamble on the Maryland Terps, which a lot of teams wouldn't have done, and it's worked out fantastically. This high-powered offense, can this defense stop it? I don't know. If for any reason Maryland win, they will jump into the top 15 instantly. They will be ranked among some of the highest teams in the nation because they'll be deserving. Like I say, Iowa will be worried. If I was an Iowa fan, I would be worried about this weekend.
Absolutely. And, that's why I've picked it out as one to watch. I think, like you say, the styles are there. There's a high-powered offense coming up against a very stout defense. Which one is going to win out? But I think seeing Taulia is going to be interesting. So it'll be the first time I've really watched them. And I'm interested to see how he gets on and how he's looking. Obviously, I hope he does well. And, stats don't lie so far. He's having a hell of a season. So we'll see how he does when he's on the big stage and whether he can get there or not. So, it's going to be interesting. Oh God, there's so many other games in here. I think the other one I very closely got my eye on is going to be number 7 ranked Cincinnati against number 9 ranked Notre Dame. Now, as we've already mentioned, Notre Dame are struggling this year. That offensive line is not as good as it has been in previous years. It's causing the quarterback all sorts of problems there, trying to get it running fluidly. But that defense led by Kyle Hamilton is dangerous on any day. It's a lot of good players in there. They're dragging them towards victories. It's not the offense necessarily that's getting it done. The defense is laying the foundation, and they're coming up against Desmond Ridder now. I've already mentioned this. Desmond Ridder, I feel ashamed because I was really high on him coming into this season. And I let the people who were talking who aren't as high on him, who say this, he's got problems, he's not going to be that good, etc. I let them get to me a little bit, and I cooled down on him in a bit. But watching the Bearcats this year, he looks really good so far. And if Notre Dame are there and they're weak and they're there to be taken, for me, if the Bearcats can come in and win here and Ridder has a good day, I think my faith is going to be completely and utterly restored in him as a viable option for this upcoming draft. It's going to be interesting to see if Notre Dame's luck runs out and the Bearcats are there on merit. I mean, they're there on merit, but this would be a massive win for them, even if Notre Dame aren't the best in the world at the minute.
I think this is the weekend that Notre Dame loses. I think Ahmad Gardner, the Cincinnati cornerback, I think he's going to have a great day. He's going to love playing against a quarterback with a shaky offensive line. Like, he's going to be able to undercut routes. He's going to be able to have a standout day, I think. And Desmond Ridder, like you say, it's Ridder versus Hamilton. How well can he look off the safety? How well can they manage that secondary? I think Ridder's got enough in the tank. He's got a powerful arm. He's got good accuracy. I think this is the game where, if he puts it all together, I think they could end the week, like say, 5th, 6th. The sky's the limit, really, for Cincinnati if they can win this weekend. And this is just going to it's going to make it even harder to keep Luke factual, like the manager. Like, I think he's going to leave it end of season when Ridder does, because I think he's taken them as high as he can go. But this is going to prove his credentials. Like, for me, he's the kind of guy that USC need. I would be going straight after this guy. Like, that would be such a high-profile job for him. I think Cincinnati are going to win. I don't think it's going to be super high scoring. I think they'll keep it, like, say, 20s, 30s. But I think Notre Dame's offense won't be able to keep up with the Cincinnati offense. I think they've shown their struggles. Like, say, I think this is going to be the weekend where they get found out.
I don't know with this one. It's just Notre Dame just seem to have this ability to win, even if they're not playing well. And, as much as I love Ridder and the Bearcats, it just feels like it's a game where it's all just going to go pear-shaped for them. I don't know why, but I hope it's a good one. I hope Cincinnati win, because, like I say, it would be such a statement win for them. And Notre Dame have had a lot of success in the last few years, so it'll be good to see Cincy get a statement win like this go. But we will see. But Ridder versus Hamilton's going to be really interesting to see. Hopefully he can just keep away from him and keep him out of the game if he wants to have any success there. But other games this weekend, what are you looking forward to? I know your own Arizona State have a big one coming up this weekend, don't they? Especially as it relates to their conference.
Yeah, we've got a direct rival now. It's UCLA, who have had a down week, but they were bouncing back, like say. So this is our second now Pac-12 game. They're ranked. We've dropped out the rankings. But like I say, there's a lot to play in stakes for the conference title game. Both 3-1. We've both had a loss that hurt. So this is a game that could be quite fun, because we've got Chip Traynham, the running backs, back. So him, Rashad White, Daniel Nagata. That's one of the most underrated three-headed running back monsters in the country, potentially. We do rush a lot. We put some heavy run yards. They've got Charbonnet. Can we stop the run? Can we stop DTR? Jane Daniels has just come off a game where he threw 2 interceptions and no touchdowns. Can he bounce back against the UCLA defense? It's going to be a very tense game because there's a lot on stake. Like I say, the loser of this really is on the back foot, especially in this conference. So, like I say, if anyone's wanting to stay up to 3:30 on a Sunday or on a Monday morning, like I say, it could be a fun watch.
Or it could be the absolute nightmare, couldn't it? Because just about what, 18 hours after that, it's going to be the Bears and the Lions, another divisional game. This is a very critical weekend in your footballing schedule, isn't it?
Yeah, we're also at home to Rochdale, Bradford. So, like I say, I could have a great weekend. I could have even more losses. Like I say, it's not the last 2 weeks have been bad.
That's it. You're either coming on next week's show wearing a party hat or wearing a pair of sunglasses to cover up the tears, aren't you? And I don't think there's really going to be an in between with that one. Hopefully, it's the party hat, but no, we'll see. I mean, we've already mentioned quite a few good games here, but I mean, we're not even really scratched the surface. I mean, another one for me. This is a really big one, especially as it pertains to my list of players I've told you all to watch this year. This is number 8 ranked Arkansas against number 2 ranked Georgia. Now, obviously, Georgia have looked a great side this year. You know, you can't find many obvious weaknesses to their game currently, but Arkansas came into Texas. They took on A&M. They won. You know, how are they going to follow up this huge win here? Jefferson and Burks are hitting form at the right time. Can they upset Georgia? Very unlikely, but this is the game where Treylon Burks can really announce his, arrival to the high echelons of the draft scene here, as you will. If he has a good game, if he gets over 100 yards, a touchdown in this, it's going to be, huge for him. But this has the potential to be a sneaky good game as well. It just depends on if Arkansas are ready to step up in such quantity. But, obviously want Georgia to do well this year with JT Daniels. I think this could be another sneaky fun one if Arkansas come to play.
This is a trap game for Georgia, isn't it? This is a game where everyone's expecting them to win. So if for any reason they lost, like everyone would doubt them. Like they've got everything to lose. And like say, no one expected Arkansas to do well. Not in the SEC. They've got everything to gain. Like say, is KJ Jefferson 100%? So there's questions going into this game. Georgia are going to get after him. Who's going to because I've watched Georgia a few times this season. I think they look better with Stetson Bennett under center sometimes than do JT Daniels because he sometimes raises questions about me. Like say, can he step up this week? Like say, because this is arguably the biggest. This is a huge game. This is going to set the tone in the SEC and say, look, we're not to be messed with. We're top dog. No one's going to fuck with us. Arkansas are going to go in there and say, we don't care you're Georgia. Don't care you're number 2. We're not going to show you any respect. Don't show any respect. And I think, like you say, this could be a really fun game. If they, for any reason, don't take them serious enough, like they could come crashing down to earth with a bang. Right? And this could be an explosive game. It might not be the highest scoring, but I think, like you say, I expect for at least 3 quarters. I think Arkansas will be right in it. They'll be within a score or 2. Like I say, it'll come down to every play. It's going to come down to the 4th quarter. Like I say, Burks against their safety, Louis sign. That's going to be fun to watch because he's going to be helping on that side of the field, and he's a hard hitter. So that's going to be a matchup of the week. Really, he's going to have to help his corners out.
Oh God, yeah, I've got a vested interest in both sides, don't I? Oh God, right. Well, I'm sure there's a situation where both of them can flourish, but remain to be seen. But again, that's another one. As you say, this is going to be a really good game to watch, and I intend to see that one. In terms of the ranked teams, there are a couple more. Baylor are playing Oklahoma State in the battle of the teams who snuck up into the rankings almost under the radar, and Oklahoma State probably a bit more so, but the potential for a fun one there. Auburn, they're ranked 22nd, obviously led by Tank Bigsby, Cantavius Bigsby, one of the greatest names in the game. But LSU, middling team this year, but I mean, the quarterback's having a good year. The offense is doing all right. That is, again, a clash of styles that we're going to see. But I know you've mentioned this one a lot, right? This last one I got written down here. This is a battle of unranked sides, but I'm going to let you go through it. It's Wake Forest versus Louisville. This is the potential to be the sleeper game of the week, isn't it?
It does, yeah. Like Wake Forest, they are no mugs. They are 4-0. I've looked at their schedule. They've got Louisville this week, and the next week they've got Syracuse. So that's 2 ACC rivals. If they were to claim 2 wins here before their final 4 games, which are really awful, Sam Hartman is one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the nation. For 4 years now, he has led Wake Forest to winning seasons, bowl games. Like I say, they're a really good, well-drilled side. Like I say, 4-0, they're doing well in the ACC where teams are struggling. I think this is going to be really fun to watch because it's a passing team against a run pass team like Malik Cunningham. Like, he's really hard to defend. Like, he's not fun to play against. One of these teams, like say, they do have title aspirations. Like, these two teams think they can really do something this year. So I'd love to think that Wake Forest, they're opening up on ESPN as like 74% favourites, pardon me, which I think is really high. I think like this is going to be closer than that. But no, I've got a crush on Wake Forest. Like, they don't get enough credit. They do really well. They're a good looking team. They've got a creepy ass mascot, the Demon Deacons. Like, that. If anyone wants to be neutral, like, go look at Wake Forest. They wear black and gold. Like, they look good and they play surprisingly good football. Like, for someone that's like, say, it's a smaller team, they're in Salem, North Carolina. Like, they don't get much respect in the ACC, which is very unfair. And I think this one will go a long way to deciding if one of these two teams is going to sneak into a title game. I think it could be a really fun watch. They took apart Florida State. Like, they were really good last week. And Sam Hartman, like, who knows? We could be talking about this guy in a year or two, like, say, as a guy talking about getting drafted, because he is breaking records. He's almost in top 5-10 in nearly every category at Wake Forest.
Well, obviously, yeah, you didn't know how they lost Jamie Newman, obviously, to the draft last year. You didn't know how they were going to react going forward, but they seem to have taken to it very easy, don't they, really? I've seen little bits of them this year, and they are looking good. And I agree that this could be a sneaky game of the week possibility if these two just go at one another, because so we all know Louisville's offense is just so high-powered on its day and just a wonderful thing to watch. But like you say, Hartman, on his day as well, he's a game winner, so we'll see. With the other two, Auburn, LSU, Baylor, Oklahoma State, you see any upsets there, or I mean, because Auburn, LSU, you'd think, obviously you wouldn't be talking about Auburn in the same picture there, but they're the ranked team. Is this where maybe the upset, if you can call it one, comes this week?
I hope so, because I think Auburn stink. Bo Nix is a terrible quarterback. They Tank Bigsby is the only reason they're relevant. I watched LSU. I did not expect them to be that good against Mississippi State. Like, is it Max Johnson or Max Brennan? I can't remember the quarterback.
Johnson, I think it's Johnson.
Yeah, he's a big lad. He's strong. He's got a good arm. They've got Keishon Boutel. I always say that wrong. They've got one of the best receivers in the nation. Like, he's a young man. Like, it's a good, high-powered offense, and I think that can match up well against a reasonably strong defense with Smoke Monday, good safety. But no, I think this is where LSU finally take Auburn out of the rankings, because Bo Nix ain't going to do anything.
No, he's a little bit of a fraud in that Tom 25, isn't he? Obviously not the biggest fans of Bo Nix on here, and rightly so. Right, so that is a lot of games to look forward to this weekend. Plenty to pick your poison from with all those. Obviously, your upset counter is a very good one. I'm going to try this as well. I'm pinning my upset of the week on Maryland. I reckon they're going to upset Iowa. I reckon Taulia is going to have himself a day and really announce himself on the national scene. But your upset counter, Rye, where's your upset counter at this week? Who do you think, no one's seeing this coming, but I am, because you've been quite good at this so far.
This is hard, let's say, because I want to say Ole Miss, but I know if I say Ole Miss, they'll probably get absolutely destroyed. I do agree though with you, because Spencer Petras, he's not impressed me, the Iron quarterback. Like, I don't rate the quarterback at Iowa. He's not asked to do much because he gets good field position. He lives off his defense. They can't hang with Maryland offensively. Like, I'm very much in agreement. Like, say, Maryland can win that game and they will enter the top 15 straight away. They'll jump straight to the rankings.
There you go then. So that's the upset counter from the Roar of the Lions College podcast this week. have Maryland against Iowa, but it's going to be a great game nonetheless, and we are going to be absolutely spoiled this week. Are there any other fixtures you want to give light to before we finish here, or is that it's still a stacked schedule regardless?
Whoever's playing USC, they've got a good chance to win. Like I say, whoever they're playing, I hope they lose.
USC, I don't know where they're playing this weekend.
I don't know if they've got a bye week or not.
Possibly. I mean, I think they probably need one after they went there. 2nd of October, Colorado. Oh, that's not the biggest one in the world, is it?
Colorado, terrible.
So the Wolverines, if anyone's interested in the Michigan side, they're playing Wisconsin, which could be a banana skin for them. And Michigan State have the weekend off. So they're at least probably going to stay in the rankings unless a lot of big upsets occur. So, probably 2 more undefeated Michigan teams going into next week, but we will see. Are the Wolverines going to get found out? Possibly. Who knows? If they have to rely on the quarterback, though, you do fear for them. So that's the review for the preview, for week 6. God, everything is going so quick. Done. So now we're going to quickly finish off with a little segment. This is a question from one of our listeners, Ashley, who he supports the pod so much. Bless him, he's always interacting with us. He's asked us a question this week, which we've done a little bit of research for. So he asks, given that the Lions are a bad team but still have good players, we know record isn't a good judge for player talent. So give us some players on bad teams that you think might be worth looking at. And he uses the example of Jermaine Johnson from Florida State because he is an FSU fan and we need to give him something good in his life. So he's asked us to look for players who are not necessarily on the best team in the world, but who could be in draft consideration. Now, I think we've got a list of 3 each. So do you want to give us your first one, Ryan? Who are you looking at who's not on a good team, but is a very draftable prospect?
I'll start my worst team. That's Washington State, and their running back, Max Borghi. Now, if anyone knows him, everyone thinks he's Christian McCaffrey reincarnated. If you squint a little bit, it looks like him. But also, he runs and he catches balls out of the backfield so well. This is one of the best dual threat running backs in the nation. Now, he's been dealing with injury. He's not touched the ball much this season. But if you go back 2 years ago, 1,400 yards. He was riding the crest of a wave. Washington State looked good. Like, this young man is really impressive. Like, on his day, he's easily one of the top 10 running backs in the country because he's offers so much diversity. Like, he's probably a better passing catch running back than he is pure running back, but he's the heart of that offense, and he has been for a few years now. And he's probably why they're struggling so bad this year. Like, he's been very limited to date, but he's still got, like, say, a few hundred yards. But he's someone that wants to get back to health. He's the way they win games. He's built, he's strong. He's got a good center of gravity because he's not too tall. And he's someone I think that will definitely somehow make an impact or get a chance at the next level going off his previous workload, because he's a great dual threat running back, like I say, and he's tough as well. He's a muscly little guy. He's like a little muscle shark.
There you go, Ash. First up, Christian McCaffrey, possible replacement up in the league from one of the small teams. It'll be interesting to see how he does. And like you say, if he can get fit, then he's going to attract a lot of attention if he's carrying those sort of attributes with him. My first guy I've picked out, this guy's name is Jalen Foster. He's a defensive back from Southern Carolina who are 2-2, but make no mistake, they're not the best team in the world at all. They just had an easy schedule to start out with. So this guy, he's played 4 games this year, 13 solo tackles, 18 assisted tackles. He's got a quarterback hit, and he's already got 4 interceptions, which makes him the leader in the SEC for interceptions this year. And I'm not just picking him because he's at the top of a list. He's played some difficult teams. So 2 of those picks came against the Georgia Bulldogs, the second-ranked team in the country. And I took an interest in Southern Carolina because obviously we did the Zeb Nolan story at the start of the year, him, the graduate assistant, becoming the quarterback. And I was watching their game against Georgia last week. And this guy, Jalen Foster, he picked off both Stetson Bennett and JT Daniels in that game. Now, Stetson's throw was a little high and it gave him a better opportunity to get it. But in JT Daniels' case, he put a ball up in the air and he just his movement is just lovely. He just came up with this lovely undercut. Daniels was throwing to one of his tight ends and just out of nowhere he came, picked it, managed to keep him balanced because it was right on the sideline and he picked him off. And, this Georgia team is good. And to get 2 picks in one game against them, he really stood out. And then in his last game this weekend, just gone, they were playing against Kentucky. Again, this is another good team. Kentucky, they're 4-0, and he got an interception and a quarterback hit on them. So this is a guy who is decent in coverage. He can get at the quarterback, break up passes. He's going to be a late round guy if he's going to be anything. But I want to see a ball hawk there in the Lions secondary if I'm looking for someone. I want to see someone who's always looking for where the ball is getting in the action, and he certainly is that. And the thing that really sticks out for me from his remaining schedule. Southern Carolina, they've still got to play Texas A&M. They've got to play the Florida Gators. They've got to play Auburn. They've got to play Clemson. These are a lot of opportunities for him to stand out because a lot of these teams are going to be raining balls down on them like there's no tomorrow. So he's going to get plenty of opportunity to impress further. Who have you got next, Rye?
My next guy is a Nebraska Cornhuskers wide receiver. That's Samari Torre. He's 6'3". He's just under 200 pounds. He was a transfer. He outgrew FCS. He was at the Montana Grizzlies, where he put up 1,500 yards in 2019. He had a monster season with 16 touchdowns. And I think he broke a record for the most FCS receiving yards in a game. They beat Southeastern Louisiana in a playoff game. He had over 300 yards receiving just on his own. Like I say, he bumped up his totals there. He has the ability to take over a game. He's got long, rangy strides. He's got good reach. And to step up to the FBS is one thing. He's already got nearly 400 yards at Nebraska. And they're 2-3, so they're not the best team. He has stepped into this team with all these big FBS guys, and he's taken over that locker room. He's become a number 1 threat and target already. And he's someone that is going to put up some big numbers this year. I think, like I say, making that jump up from the FCS to the FBS is by no means easy. He's trusted. He's got, like I say, a big resume. Like I say, because Montana Grizz, they were a good team. They were a playoff contender. He's played on some big stages. And I think he's a guy that especially the Lions should look at. I put into the other day to someone called Ryan, who does like draft prospects on Twitter, and he says he's a riser. He is rising up draft boards very quickly. He's working his way from those later rounds to possibly those middle rounds. I think for someone like, he's worth watching this year at Nebraska. Whether they do well or not, it appears that he's doing well and he's putting up yards and he's helping them, put him in chances to win games. He's going to have a big year.
Yeah, I can confirm Nebraska are not the best team this year. So if you're showing out in that side, then, there is something to it. And like you say, the step up in opposition to carry on making the production is huge. So, be interesting to see, because obviously receiver's going to be a big one for us this year. And I'm going to fire a receiver straight back at you. So my receiver out of this is Josh Johnson, who is the wide receiver from Tulsa. Now, Tulsa, they've got a very hard schedule this year, but they're not the greatest. They're 1-3 currently. But Josh Johnson, through 4 games, he's 317 yards, just 1 touchdown, but nearly 14 yards a throw. So he had a quiet first 2 games, but I noticed him again the other week, actually, when Tulsa were playing Ohio State. And in that game, he went off on OSU for 149 yards and a touchdown on just 8 receptions. And the thing that stood out immediately to me was just his footwork. It's just so nimble, his movement. He was making people miss. He was hard to bring down. And he had a day against them. And I know Ohio State aren't the best team this year, but that secondary is still full of 3, 4, 5-star recruits. These are not like just any amateurs he's going up against. He had a really good game against them, and I remember him standing out in that. And when we were presented with this question, his name immediately came to mind. So I'm going to be very interested to see how he does. There's only got 1 ranked opponent left in the Bearcats, so he's going to have the chance to fill his boots. And I'm going to be very interested to see how he does this weekend just gone. He followed up that performance with 127 yards against Arkansas State. So, it wasn't just a flash in the pan. he is producing consistently, and I'm going to be interested to see if that carries on. Now, we'll finish off with your last guy, Rye. Who's your last one to look out for on a bad team?
This is it. I'm going to quarterback now. And this guy might ring some bells. Like if anyone knows FCS, it's Bailey Zappi. He's the quarterback formerly of the Houston Baptist. He outgrew the FCS. He decided to take advantage of that penalty-free transfer year. He's joined the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. They're 1-2, but the next game is against Michigan State. So they're soon to be 1-3 probably. So that they're going to struggle like he's not used to struggling. This guy was an FCS stud. This guy's like a 6,000+ yard passing quarterback. He's experienced. He's got like, say, nearly like 100 touchdowns. This guy, if you were to build a quarterback, he kind of looks like the guy you build. He's like 6'4". He's got a big arm. He's strong. He's got that prototypical frame. He's already having a great year. Like say, like he throws a lot of touchdowns. I think he's already at like 1,100 yards. To say Western Kentucky aren't doing great, but he just fits the mold of like a strong passing arm. He's a great pocket passer. I think he's someone that has got a lot of tape to work off from his FCS days. Jumped up to FBS starter straight away at a good high-powered offense school. So I think he's someone that may well be undrafted right now. You might not want to draft him, but if you ask yourself later on in the year, like he may be the kind of guy that sneaks into that 6th, 7th round. Like he's someone that's got all the talents. He's got all the frame. There's a lot there to work with. Like it could be a good project. Like say Western Kentucky may not win a lot of games, but he's going to put up a lot of yards. He's going to throw touchdowns, even in losing efforts. He'll try hard. He's hard to bring down. He's just got a really good pocket presence. Like him and you can say Eric Barriere, another guy at Eastern Washington. Same kind of guy. FCS, like I said, these are two like guys that aren't on the greatest team, but do not rule them out because they're really good. They're the cream of the FCS crop and our FBS schools, like I say. So they're the kind of guys that someone will take a flyer on. They could be the next Mike Taylor Heineke. They could be the next Brandon Allen.
Yeah, and I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that the Lions go developmental for a quarterback if they want to give Goff a bit more time and they're not too fussed about handing up a late round pick to try and find someone who may develop over time. So be interesting to see there. I've left my big gun till last here, so I've gone back to secondary again. I think I'm very high on secondary this year, and you might know the last name, but you'll not know the first. So this is Reed Blankenship. Don't believe he's related to Rodrigo at all, but he's a safety who plays for Middle Tennessee. Now, anyone who listened to the podcast last year, our main one, would know how much of a crush I had on a certain safety last year in Richie Grant. And I promised myself I would never, ever, ever get sucked in on a safety again. But I'm finding it hard to stay away from this guy. Middle Tennessee are only 1-3 this year. Not the greatest team in the world, but this guy just ticks nearly every box going. So in 4 games, he's already racked up 21 solo tackles, 18 assisted tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 3 run stuffs, a forced fumble, 2 pass breakups. Now, I think he's in his 5th year in college, but his career to date, he's been all over the place. So all over, he's got 211 solo tackles, 137 assisted tackles, 19.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 8 interceptions, one of which he returned for a touchdown, 13 pass breakups, 2 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery. This is the safety who can do everything. I mean, the thing that jumps out about him is his athleticism. It is off the chart. Math Bomb's going to love him. I don't know what, Math Bomb's going to go absolutely crazy for a guy like this, I would think, on his RAS charts. He's just an absolute different level. The guy's got a relentless motor. He's as explosive as they come. Now, this isn't just at safety. He's got a special teams upside to him as well, which is really going to appeal to sides. He's got 2 blocked kicks to his name. I think they're both field goal attempts, 2 blocks there, which just shows the motor he has to get off and block those. That just shows his versatility. So you've got safety ability, special teams ability. When you're going in the later rounds, this is key. Now he's got the tracking ability to play at free safety. He is able to carve himself out a niche there if he wants to. He's got great footballing IQ, as you can see with the high numbers of pass breakups, of interceptions. He knows where the ball's going before it's even thrown. This guy just, for me, he's got everything going for him. Now, the problems he's had injuries. He had a broken leg 1 year, which is, been a concern for him. But since he's been able to stay relatively healthy, it's just he's got issues in man coverage at the minute, which he needs to work on. But he has every single attribute you want for a safety. And like I say, just athletically, he's a different level. Now, in a couple of weeks, he's playing against Liberty and Malik Willis. So you're going to be able to see him on full show against an offense, which is going to cause him a lot of problem. Everything I've seen of this guy, I mean, just in high school, he also played quarterback and running back. I think he rushed for 1,300 yards in a season as a running back, through over 3,000 yards as a quarterback. So he's just been doing everything going forwards. But as a safety, he's just, he's got everything there. The tracking ability, just the IQ to play the position. And I'm totally going to get sucked into wanting a safety again this year. And I never said I would, but it is what it is. I think he's going to be an absolute great steal. He's projected anywhere at the minute between round 3 to round 6, wherever you're looking. If he has a great season, it's probably going to be nearer to 3. But if he's there at 4 or 5, I'm giving him serious consideration already. But I will take a deep dive and the look on that tape there. But I've done it again, Rye. I've got suckered in on a safety, but I know you are getting suckered in on prospects as well. So you can't say nothing.
We're going to draft at least one safety. So I think it's fine to get attached to safety this year, because we could take at least 2 and undrafted. So we're going to reload on safety, because at this rate, only Walker's going to be here, and that's not even a guarantee yet. It could be clearing shop in safety. So we're going to be taking galore. There are going to be loads of them. And like I say, look at Sterling Weatherford. He's on a 1 and 3 team as well. Ohio, like, we've both got suckered in on safeties on bad teams that do everything. So if we got both of those 2, I'd be delighted.
Exactly. So, not just me, there are a lot of good safeties out there to be had this year on bad teams. So hopefully, Ashley, that's at least partially answered your question. Now you've got 6 very varied individuals there, and we'll keep a close eye on them to see whether any of it comes to fruition. We have had a second question as well, because we've been going on forever today. We're going to end this. So Ferg has asked us on Twitter. He wants I know you've been chatting with him a bit already, right? But he wants our number 2 tight end prospects, mid to late round receivers, offensive guards, edge setters, defensive backs, and kickers. He's not asking much of us, but what I figured is we can have a little competition for next week. We can have a look through these, come up with our own teams. We'll not tell each other who we've got, and we'll compare lists next week, and we'll see who we come up with, and hopefully we come to a consensus on a few guys. So Ferg,
see if we agree on anyone.
Exactly. So Ferg, we're going to do this completely independent of one another, but we'll do it next week when we can give it a lot more time, because we've been going a long time today. So we're going to start wrapping this one down now. Is there anything else you want to get in, Rye, while we're here, in terms of anything that's happened this week, happening next week?
Nope. The head coach firings, we've only had 3 through best part of 5.5 weeks. That is going to ramp up very quickly. Like I say, in the next few weeks, you're going to see lots of head coaches starting to get fired, because, like I say, this is getting into, we make a bowl game, we don't make a bowl game. Like I say, you need 6 or 7 wins to make a bowl game. We're already at nearly 5 games. You're teetering on the edge.
Yeah, exactly. And there are a lot of guys who are in really bad situations at the minute. So I agree. We're going to be seeing a lot more coming up that we're going to find out about. And as you've mentioned, the halfway point of the week is only about 2 weeks away now, 3 weeks, very close. Yep. When it gets to that point, I think we're going to look at maybe doing a halfway through the season mock draft for the Lions, and we're going to see where we're at, and then we're going to do another one for the end of the season, just to see how we change. That's something that's going to be coming up in a few weeks, which will be there to look forward to. But so that's everything for this week. Just going to go through the last few bits as we normally do. So episodes coming up. Obviously, tomorrow, Thursday, the 30th of September, we go back to our main podcast. That's going to be a preview of the Chicago Bears game. I do believe we have someone joining us from Bear Down Report over in the US, which will be fun because those guys are uber knowledgeable about the Bears. Ryan, who works over there, we talk with him a lot. He's a great guy, and I think he's got a really good team there. So, we should have some inside information on the Bears, although we know we're just going to sack the hell out of them anyhow, which is going to be really fun to watch. And then in terms of us, we will be back next Wednesday, which is the 6th of October. We're going to have another big show next week. So we're going to be obviously looking back at the week 5 review. We're going to take a look at week 6. We're going to be assembling our little teams for Ferg for everything he has there. But we've also, I believe, had a request for some cornerback scouting as well, Ryan.
Yeah, no, we have in the Discord. Yeah, someone wants to know who the outside of the likely guys are, who can be some cornerbacks to watch out for. So we won't look at we'll rule out Stingley and Gardner, like you say. We'll look past the top obvious 2 and 3.
Yeah, I don't think I'd even. Yeah, I think if we were just given a flat out task for that, I'd stay away from the big ones. I don't want to be touching one in the first round. I don't want to take another one that high again. I'm scarred.
No,
I can't do it.
I don't trust Derek Stingley. I'm telling you now, he's gonna be a bust. I do not trust that kid. He is still living off that 1-2 year ago tape. He's not been good this year, and now he's hurt. Avoid at all costs.
Exactly. So yeah, we'll do some outside cornerbacks for you as well next week. So that is a lot to look forward to there. So, that will come around before we know it. So yeah, that is just about everything. It just remains for me to go through our socials. So if you want to find us all online, we are everywhere at the moment. So on YouTube, you can find us at Roar of the Lions UK. On Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram, you'll find us at ROTL_UK, all in caps. On Facebook, our page, Roar of the Lions UK, and our group, Detroit Lions Fans UK, One Pride Worldwide. And then, of course, obviously, you can find us on our website as well, www.roarofthelionsuk.com. We've got articles going up on there all the time about this, that, and everything. And we also have a project in the works, which we're going to tell you a bit more about soon, involving the Lions and the New York Jets, which is going to be very interesting. Keep an eye out for that. But it just remains to me, as ever, to thank Ryan for another great show again. We've gone on a while, but that just means we've had a lot of good stuff to talk about, and we will look forward to doing the same next week again. So, Rye, thanks as ever, and I shall see you again very soon. One Pride.
Yep. Again next week. One Pride.